In this podcast, Jamie Chovan, who is a recent grad from the DeVille School of Business, majoring in marketing and minoring in graphic design, we talked to her a little bit about how it feels to be that new grad in the field of business, the world of marketing, what have you, and all the challenges and opportunities it presents. Jamie also goes on to give us little insight on what to expect when coming out of college and how to metaphorically strap up our boots and get ready for those changes. So I know that we talked about the 9 to 5. We were even talking about this last night about how we're expected to work 9 to 5, but it's not always 9 to 5. Sometimes there's some overtime. What advice would you give younger people? Okay, so we're starting off our podcast project for Dr. Petrachek's class. I'm Ariana Chovan.
And I'm Dejanay Smith.
And today we have Jamie Chovan, who graduated from the DeVille School of Business with us. Hi, Jamie.
Hello.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. Where do you work? How is it going with everything going on with COVID and everything?
So I graduated from Walsh in 2019, so I've been out for about almost 2 years now, which is crazy to think. I currently work at a marketing firm called Good Place Holdings. I'm a brand coordinator and work with 2 brands primarily. We're working from home half the time, going into the office half the time, so it's a good switch up. But really, other than that, I don't think COVID has affected my work and how I go about work. So overall, the experience has been okay.
That's pretty good. It's good to be in the field, I guess, right now, better than being a student.
Oh, yeah, no kidding.
Okay. So what steps did you take before graduating to ensure success?
Ooh, that's a good question. So I had an internship going into my senior year, and then I went to school for a semester, and then I decided to get another internship. Honestly, I just wanted more experience under my belt before going into the work field. I thought that having 2 internships would give me more experience in interviews. Heck, even like writing papers for classes like this, I was like, I can relate back to those experiences I had.
What kind of advantage do you think you have being a young business professional in the marketing world?
I would definitely say social media. I had my Instagram when I was
13.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
So I've literally lived through all of the new platforms and changes, and I know what marketing works for me specifically. Like I'll see an ad for like Lululemon leggings, and I'm like, buy.
Yeah.
But then there's other ads that I'm like, why would they give that to me? So I feel like that has helped me understand like building an audience and knowing what to say to them. I've actually never marketed to like our generation, which is interesting, but still living through social media, I feel like I have a good base. Even if I am marketing to like 60-year-old men or 50-year-old women, whatever it is, you just have an awareness that I think other generations don't have.
You know what I think is interesting is our generation, like millennials, Gen Z, we're the ones that create these norms on social media, so we're the ones that can apply them. Do you think that kind of sets you apart from, maybe say, maybe like 35 and older people who are applying for that job versus you? Do you think that sets you apart?
Yeah, I feel like our generation, we're just really quick on our toes with thinking about like, why don't we just try that?
Yeah.
And to other people, it's like, it might take them longer to get to those ideas or conclusions. I'm not saying that we're smarter by any means, but when it comes to social media, I think we just have more experience, I guess, is the good way to put it.
Dad doesn't even know really how to send a DM on Instagram or anything like that. So kind of going off that thought of there's a little bit of a difference from, the older generation and our generation in marketing. Do you think that what your boss or maybe a project manager expects from you differs from those who maybe are a little older or have a little bit more experience in the field?
Ooh. I didn't think the question was going to be asked like that. That's an interesting take on it, because I was thinking it from like an age perspective. Like, what do they expect from a 24-year-old versus...
Well, you could answer it that way too, but maybe...
A 24-year-old that has lived through social media is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Honestly, I do think that they expect me to come to the table with creative ideas, and they are very open to hearing those ideas, and they're like, run with it. Like, there have been multiple projects I'm like, okay, I need to write a creative brief for this so I can pitch my idea, give the details, and I'll just start talking about an idea I have. They're like, just do it. Like, you know what you're doing, just do it. So I don't know if other generations, if that's just business and they don't have time to hear that stuff, or if they're like, we don't understand it, do it. But that's what I've experienced.
Do you think that marketing, like most of it is going to social media because of the pandemic and things going virtual, or do you think that there's still some of the older practices that are really going to help?
Honestly, I think it's 50-50. A ton of business moving forward will have to stay on video chat and social media just for the convenience of it. But honestly, a lot of people are missing that like personal connection they're making with other businesses and people have had to get super creative. So at that job, when we were doing those in-person events, it was a great way to get some new leads and make new relationships, but we couldn't do it in person. So we started doing video calls, but every brand was like, let's, come to this webinar, blah, blah, blah. So we said, hey, if you attend our online meeting, our webinar, we'll send you a $25 DoorDash gift card to support a local business. So like, you just have to get creative and, like you said, like compensate for, and you have to stand out from other people. Why do people want to talk to you online?
I do remember the first time you kind of launched one of those campaigns and you were giving out the DoorDash gift cards, and someone signed up and got the DoorDash gift card and didn't show up.
So hey, even that though, like that's a learning experience.
Everything's a learning experience, it seems, especially this year.
Yep.
And what are some challenges that you have faced in your career, and how did you find a solution to them?
Well, fresh out of college, I feel like you're going to run into a lot of challenges. They probably feel bigger than what they are just because, you don't have that experience yet. But I would say like the toughest thing I would run into is just the learning curve of working 40 hours a week in a business and new industries that you don't know. And so you're going to make a lot of mistakes, and it's going to take time to learn your customer and your audience and the company. Like, what are you selling? What do you even do? So I would say that was the biggest challenge. As far as a solution goes, I think you got to stay humble. You got to pick yourself up at the end of the day and say, I don't know what I'm doing. And ask questions. That's the biggest thing that I could tell someone who just graduated is don't be afraid to ask your boss questions. I'd rather you ask questions than mess up.
So kind of going off that, do you think that it's a little bit intimidating, being fresh out of college, being a grad, and it's the first time that you don't have a school schedule or a syllabus or assignments or something to plan your day off of? It's all on you. How do you think that changes things?
I think eventually you get in a groove. You make your own schedule. Like, I literally write my to-dos every day. But I think when you're fresh out of school, you put so much pressure on yourself. Like, you feel like you have to prove yourself. I'm manager material. I'm smart. I have an education. And they aren't expecting, like, the greatest of great ideas from you. At the end of the day, they need you to do what you're hired to do. And I ran into the issue a few months ago where I was putting in like 50 hours a week at work.
I remember that.
And I just felt like I couldn't do enough. And my boss approached me about it and said, why are you working this much? And it came out that I felt like I had to. And she said, we're not expecting that from you. You're doing a great job with your 40 to 45 hours a week. You don't have to kill yourself to, you're making a good impression just by your quality of work. So
I know that we talked about the 9 to 5. We were even talking about this last night about how we're expected to work 9 to 5. But as you kind of get into that, it's not always 9 to 5. Sometimes there's some overtime. What advice would you give younger people about feeling like they have to work over that 9 to 5? Do they have to work over it?
That's an interesting question. I think it just depends on the week. You're part of a team, so you're going to do whatever you can to get a job done and to, help out designers. I know that April is taking some paid time off on Friday, so she's going to need some extra work from me in order to get the project done by Thursday. So I'll put in an extra hour or two. You know what I mean? So it's really just a give or take. It's not.
All right, and to wrap everything up, what advice do you think you would give your senior self?
I would say don't be scared about, what's about to come. I think it's so unknown. And I definitely didn't know a pandemic was going to happen.
I don't think we even knew what the word pandemic meant until it happened.
Seriously. But I think I was so worried about, going back to some of the questions I answered, just having to prove myself. And am I ready to do this? Am I smart enough? Am I capable of, I don't know. That's it. After 4 years, you graduate and, you could go back and get your master's and continue learning. But it's really not scary. And when you fail, it's not the end of the world. You're going to fail. You're going to make mistakes. But I would say, just enjoy the last 6 months you're there. Have a healthy relationship with focusing on your career, but also making the best of, living with your best friends in an apartment, because soon you have your loans to pay back.
I think that's good advice.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much for giving us some insight on what it's like to be fresh out of college, especially with, the pandemic and everything. It's a little bit different of a perspective, but nonetheless, it's a good one.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
So our intent with this podcast was to give a little bit of insight to those entering the field of business, whether that is marketing or management or accounting even, just a little bit of insight on what's going on out there right now, due to COVID-19 and all of those challenges that it presents to us as business individuals, and even just, changing how we do things because there is a new generation coming into the business world. I think that is a strength that we have under our belts. However, I do think it needed to be addressed, and that's what this podcast really did. So I hope that this was able to help some people and that you all genuinely enjoyed this. I know I laughed a few times listening back to it, as this was my sister Jamie who I was interviewing, but nonetheless, I had a great time.